Welcome back to my video series about top 5 choices in 9th Age. This time we're going to look at top 5 chariots. And with chariots I'm sticking to the vintage definition of a chariot, which is that it's a combat focused entry. It's not focused around buffs. It can have a buff, but it's not necessarily focused around it. And it has to be large and it has to be a construct in the 9th Age rules. So let's get into it without further ado. In the top 5, number 5 spot, it's going to be the Highborne Elves Lion Chariot for me. I feel this is just a well-rounded choice, and most chariots, they are really dependent on charge against monsters. The Lion Chariot isn't that charge dependent, even though the D6+1 impact hits, they do make quite a difference. But just let's get through it. So the special rules on the Lion Chariot is what I believe really makes it one of the really good chariots in the game. So especially the multiple wounds 2 on the crew. So you have 1 attack each, you have 2 attacks, you have strength 4 with a great weapon, so you have strength 6 with AP 3. This is usually enough to get through a lot of monsters. Do you have multiple wounds 2 against large and beast, large and cavalry, and gigantic. So this is really a good tool to zone monsters, mostly because they don't really want to be in a reliable charge range of a Lion Chariot. You have an advance of 8 inches, which is enough to do at least some zoning. And yeah, you're just really reliable. And in addition to the crew, you still have the lions. And the lions each have 2 attacks, each with strength 5, offensive 5, which is high, and agility 4, which is also really high. So the lions with their 4 strength 5 attacks, I usually just ignore them a little bit, but you definitely shouldn't. Out of this chariot, you get 6 attacks at offensive 5 with a strength higher than 5 or 5 or higher, and you get a d6+1 impact hits. And I think d6+1, the 1 here, also still makes quite a difference. In addition to that, it's still rather resilient for the offensive output that comes out of it. With heavy armor, with armor 2, so you have a 3-up armor save in the end. You only have resilience 4, and that is basically the reason why it deserves a number 5 spot for me and not anything higher. Then after that we go to the number 4 spot. The number 4 spot for me is going to be the Undying Dynasty Skeleton Chariots. I think they're really good. I don't think they're the best chariot. It's a bit of a weird choice here because they fulfill a bit of a different role than most chariots. So it's quite difficult to grade them in terms of their chariot role, or at least in a comparison to other chariots. What does skeleton chariots provide you? Well, you can use big units, and they're rather cheap at 75 points per extra model. With a base cost of 290 points, they're also not even too expensive. I mean, a Lion Chariot we saw was 205 points, I believe, right now. You get 2 extra chariots for an extra 85 points, basically. Well, then what does the skeleton chariot provide you? You have 2 attacks per crewman, so you have 4 attacks per skeleton chariot, and I think that is already really interesting. You have 2 skeleton horses that don't really impact the game a lot. You have a chassis with impact hits that are only at strength 4, so that is not even too big. You do have the chariot host special rule that impact hits cause an extra hit if there's a model directly behind it, so that you can do D3+2, for example, instead of D3+1 impact hits. I don't think this stacks even with more ranks, so the impact hits is not necessarily what is gonna get you going on this unit. The funny thing here is that with the big unit and with Resurrection, you can actually get quite far. And then suddenly you turn your chariot unit into a grinding unit. You can also still get the Legion Charioteers, then you get Devastating Charge +1 strength and fight an extra rank. And these are large models, so you will be able to get 3 supporting attacks per model. You cannot use the harness model parts for this, but that means that you get 3 extra charioteer attacks from each chariot that is in the 3rd rank. Normally you only get these for the 2nd rank. So if you have a unit of 6 of these, for example, and it charges in, you're going to do 3d3 plus 6 impact hits, if I'm right. That's strength 4. Strength 4 seems kind of, yeah. But then in addition, you're still going to get, let me see, 4 times 3, 12 plus 9, 21 attacks at offensive 3 with strength 4 because of the halberd. And yeah, that is quite a lot of attacks. You still get 6 horse attacks, but nobody really cares about those, I think. And the most funny part about this unit is that, well, you're doing a lot of damage probably to anything that you charge, or still anything that's in combat with you, because in the 2nd round, if you hit with 21 attacks, then there's still a lot that's not going to be that happy about it. And you can resurrect them with 1 full chariot at a time with a resurrection value of 3. So back in the day where Undying Dynasties automatically got their resurrection on any model, any unit that they cast an augment on, then this was really impressive. And well, the last thing that I would still consider on these chariots is that they are one of the best targets in the game to buff with perception of strength. Because if you do so, then not only your impact hits, but also your attacks go up on strength. So you're gonna do instead of 3d3 plus 6 strength 4 impact hits, you're gonna do these at strength 5. Your 21 strength 4 attacks are gonna be strength 5 attacks, and your horses, well, your horses are gonna do strength 4 attacks, but it's not as important as the rest. Overall, I would rate them at the number 4 spot. But it's really hard to correctly judge these in comparison to other chariots. Then for me, the number 3 pick is going to be the Warriors of the Dark Gods Chosen Chariot. I think this is a really reliable piece. And it feels a little bit like a steam tank without the gun to me when I'm building my Warriors of the Dark Gods lists. It's extremely tough with defensive 6, with resilience 5 and armor 5, because you have Hellforged armor and you have armor 2 standard. In addition, this gives you also a 5 of Aegis against toxic attacks, but that's not really a big problem for this boy. And I think it's really perfect for the grind. So it is a chariot with impact hits and everything. It only has advanced 7, so you might not be able to rely on it charging actually, but you can still zone a bit with advanced 7 and swift stride. It's not the worst, but I feel like this chariot, it's a chariot that you should play a little bit differently than most chariots, but if you do, then it's really going to bring a lot of value. In addition, you have the favors that can give a lot of different flavors to the unit, and you can reroll all of your break tests because of Path of the Favored. So the upgrade that I usually am drawn to the most is the favor of Savar, the God of Pride, because then you roll your discipline tests with a minimized roll. Yeah, breaking from combat is something that warriors are usually not really fond of, because a lot of the units that you invest in, they start to become quite pricey. Also, the Chosen Chariot, 340 points. That is, well, nearly twice as expensive as the Lion Chariot, for example. So if you lose it, it's kind of a bummer. And the God of Pride, it means that if you lose by 1 or by 2, you're going to minimize your discipline. That is now 7 or 6. You have a reroll on it, so yeah, you'll still stick around quite a lot of the time. In contrast to having to roll a 7 or a 6. Minimize does make a difference there. And you don't have any steadfast that you can count on anytime. Other interesting options would be, to me, the God of Lust, so favor of Sibresh. Then you get Strider, which is always amazing on a chariot, even though the rules currently aren't that punishing to chariots for going through stuff like ruins. You also gain Faint Flight, and when you rally in the next turn, the test is minimized because of the favor of Sibresh. and you also are not shaken. So that means that you can move your 7 inches, and you can do a lot of crazy Helmar stuff with this combination. So what I did before is to run them with, to run Chaos Lords, Chosen Lords with God of Lust on Chariots with a Helmar, and that worked extremely well because then you can just tempt the enemy to charge you. They usually have just not too many scary units that want to go into a Chaos Lord, Chosen Lord. And then you flee away, you rally again, you go into a portal of your Helmar, you pop out on the flank of the unit that charged you in the previous turn, and you set up for a charge next turn. It feels extremely cheesy. Other upgrades, you can go for Envy, but then you gain Swift Stride, which you already paid for, so that doesn't seem too interesting. You can reroll any 2 hit rolls of a 1, but yeah, I don't know. I think it is priced with the concept in mind that you also reroll the 1 to roll for charge range. I don't think it's gonna make too much of a difference, even though it will trigger half of the times, more or less, because you're rolling 3 dice for your charge. Then you have Gluttony. Gluttony is also kind of cool because you get +1 strength for all your chosen crew attacks, but then you're already strength 5 with the halberd, so you would go to strength 6. Don't think it's that needed. I mean, Pride is 5 more points more expensive, so I would always prefer Pride over Gluttony here. God of Greed is interesting, so you can get bad weapons and you can get the Great Weapon. Great Weapon only gives you 1 extra strength relative to the halberd, and the bad weapons, they do give you offensive 7, which is kind of important sometimes, because there's quite a lot of stuff in the game with defensive 3, so you suddenly hit on a 2+, and you're going to go from 3 attacks, obviously, to 4 attacks, and you ignore parry, so that is also an interesting one if you're focused on trying to charge more infantry with it, but I don't think that's really a big problem for Warriors of the Dark Gods in general. And then we have Sloth. There's a lot of people that play these with Sloth, I believe, so you get +1 resilience. It ups the price of the chariot to 400 points. I think that is quite a lot, and it is quite situational whether it's worth it to get resilience 5 or 6. Resilience 6 is a lot, that is true. However, for all these strength 3 troops, it's not going to matter. For the strength 4 troops, it is going to matter. Yeah, I see why people take it, but it's not my favorite thing to take, just in general. Then you have the Goddess of Wrath. I think on this model, this is not the best choice, because you get lightning reflexes +1 agility, so you strike at agility 6 with your halberd with lightning reflexes. But close combat attacks towards you also gain +1 to hit, so that does mitigate your defensive 6. I don't really like Wrath on Chosen Chariot, which is also probably why it is free. So I was saying that I didn't play these myself too much, but right now I'm painting one. You can see the painting progress in this picture. I still have to do the crew, I still have to do some touch-ups on the chariot, but then I will let you know how I like it. Then for the number 2 spot, it's gonna be the Vampire Covenant Dark Coach. This one is even more expensive. However, I feel like it's worth it. I am going a little bit out of a limb here by going for a chariot that also pays for a aura buff. In this case, it's the Unholy Conduit, which means that friendly units within 6 inches of the Dark Coach gain autonomous so that they can march. It's if you would discount the coach for the Unholy Conduit, I think you would end up somewhere around 400 points, depending on the list actually, because it's really an enabler of many lists where you can just suddenly mobilize a flank with a Dark Coach. Why is a Dark Coach so incredible. Well, it's really good stats wise, basically. So the thing that I didn't see the first time that I looked at it is that you have Vampiric 3+ on the Vampire that's in the coach. So the Vampire has 4 attacks at offensive 6 with strength 5 AP 2. So that is better than these chosen crew on the chosen chariot. In addition, if he makes at least 1 wound in combat, then you're going to roll a 3+ at the end of the round of combat. On a 3+, you regain a wound on the coach. You have 5 wounds. It usually happens that you take like 1 or 2 during the game, maybe 3. And then, well, if your vampire does a wound, then you get a wound back. And this is really important on a piece that has really expensive wounds, meaning to say that, well, it has resilience 5, it has armor 4, it has an Aegis 4 up, so it's quite hard to do a wound on it, which makes it even more viable to regain a wound on it. And through reanimation, you're not going to get a lot of wounds back really quickly because it has reanimation 1. So this Vampiric 3+ on the Vampire, this is what makes the Dark Coach work for me. And then, yeah, in addition, you still have 2 attacks from the Coachman with a great weapon with AP 10. They are offensive 3, so this is usually really hit or miss whether he does something or doesn't. It's really the 2-hit roll that matters a lot there. And then you have the Undead Mounts. They do have strength 4, AP 1, so they're not too shabby, but yeah, they don't do too much usually. You can still extend the chassis. Then you get 2 extra Undead Mount attacks. I'm not too big of a fan of that. It's only 10 points, but it does make your base size incredibly big. Maybe for the Unholy Conduit rule it is useful, but I've never done it myself. And if you play a von Karnstein army, then you can take Stubborn, or you must take Stubborn. Stubborn on a coach is really interesting, because, well, all the wounds that you take from combat res are halved, and then if you're within range of a BSB, then you still deduct that from it as well. And with the Winged Reapers, you can still deduct that from it as well. So basically, you can make it so that you never crumble with the coach. However, the downside is here that there's a bit of an anti-synergy going on with just the Dark Coach in general and von Karnstein, because von Karnstein already gives you +6 inches on your commanding presence, so on your March Babble. And in the price of the coach, it is factored in that you gain this Unholy Conduit rule. So I don't think you need it with von Karnstein, because also von Karnstein, if you play multiple vampires, which you probably will, the vampires also make their units autonomous. Yeah, usually when I play von Karnstein, I look at the coach and I'm going like, yeah, I just don't really need this. I know this is the Blood Tie unit, but I just don't need this in my list now. However, it's still a really good chariot, and I think it deserves to be in the number 2 spot. And then for the number 1 spot, this is going to be a bit of an odd choice, because the book has been recently updated, or at least the alpha version is out. But for me, the number 1 spot would be the Dreadmill of the old Vermin Swarm army book. So why the Dreadmill? Well, it has 3 attacks that always hit on 3+ with strength 5, AP 10 and multiple wounds D3, and there's not a lot in the game that can get it off the table in one single round of combat. So you are quite guaranteed to do this, and yeah, you have 8 inches threat range with Swift Stride. That zones out quite well for Vermin Swarm. I feel like it's the one choice in the book that really zones out everything in the opposing army, except for just big infantry blocks. But any cowboy is going to be really annoyed with the thing. And then you don't even have to get in combat with it. So this is, I think, the main thing that I have with the Dreadmill is that it can also shoot on a 4+ at 18 inches with accurate, with quick to fire. So yeah, I'm just not a big fan of this stuff. So you have a chassis that has 3 shots that nearly always hit on 4+ unless terrain is involved, which means that you are quite guaranteed to have at least 1 hit. And these hits, they are done with strength 5, AP 10, with multiple wounds D3. Basically, this is a cowboy killer, and it is really reliable at that. And Vermin Swarm is supposed to be a book where everything works kind of shabby, and there's also some risk involved. But if it works, then it works really well. This is the most single reliable thing that you can ever find in any book. It's more reliable than a cannon. It's more reliable than a dwarven cannon. It's more reliable than, I don't know, any artillery piece that you find in any book. I think maybe the Git launcher from Orcs and Goblins could be kind of reliable. This thing is more reliable. You can also still buff it to strength 6 because why not? And then yeah, the downside of all this is that if you bump it up to strength 6, afterwards you have to roll a dice. If you roll a 1 then or a 2, then you cannot supercharge it anymore. Oh my god, no. Oh, that is so sad. Defensively, it has 5 wounds, which is higher than the average chariot. It has resilience 5 with armor 3, which is just fine defensively. Yeah, it is a specific tool, but it is a specific tool to something that a lot of armies bring. So it is a universal specific tool. It's like having a button in your army that says like, I win if my opponent feels a character. It's like, yeah, obviously your opponent feels a character because he has a general, so then you press the button and you win. Wow. Just to put it into perspective, this is a unit that focuses both on combat and ranged. If you take a unit that is one of the best units offensively, so charging warrior knights with lances with the same cost more or less, they get beaten by this thing if they charge the Dreadmill. So if you have 5 warrior knights with lances, you're gonna do 8 attacks on it. You hit on 3+, you have strength 6. So you're gonna do like 6 hits. You wound on a 3+, so that would be 4 wounds. So you nearly get to the Dreadmill, nearly tear it up, but then the Dreadmill, wait, with the 8 attacks hitting on 3+, yeah, 4 wounds. The Dreadmill strikes back, has 3 hits that 3 attacks that hit on 3+, and then if you have the 3+ that you hit, 2 hits, well, could be 2 wounds, so you have 2 that chosen knight or warrior knights. Next round of combat, it is quite unlikely that you will break it with your attacks, and also the Dreadmill strikes at the same time as you, so you're going to lose another 2 warrior knights before you get to strike. If you strike and you do manage to kill it, obviously you have 1 warrior knight left. However, that is in the ultimate scenario where the Dreadmill didn't get to fire at you during the single game. I mean, you would have to pull off a charge at 19 inches with the warrior knights, which is an 11 on the roll. And yeah, even if you get in combat with it, then it's still a toss-up who wins, basically. So I don't understand how a combat dedicated unit like that is designed to take out stuff like this, has to struggle so much against a choice like this. However, this is all going to be in the past because there's going to be a new Vermin Swarm book. I must say, after some consideration, it looks like it has quite some potent choices, and I hope that these will be rounded out before we enter tournament play with the book. But we will see what the future brings. For now, this is my roundup of the Chariots in 9th Age. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you the next time.